name's Ali, and I'm one of the dietitians from Cardiff and Vale Health Board. Now this is our 5th video in our series of videos around food and nutrition for pregnant women. This video is going to look at different types of fat and then sugar. So we're actually going to look at the last purple section in the Eat Well guide about oils and spreads, and we're also going to have a little look at the section that's outside of the Eat Well guide, which are those foods and drinks high in fat and sugar. So let's begin with our fats in general. So here we have this small section of the Eat Well guide which is called oils and spreads. Now these oils and spreads are unsaturated fats. Now they're those healthy fats. Things such as perhaps oils that we might use in cooking, spreads that we might use on our breads or in a jacket potato, for example. And then there are other healthy unsaturated fats as well, such as avocados, oily fish, salmon here, or tinned fish, mackerel, nuts, seeds, and these would then come within the other sections of the Eat Well guide as well. As the Eat Well guide shows, this is only a small section for oils and spreads, and that's because we don't need these in large amounts to gain the health benefits for baby and for mum. But they are important for lots of different reasons, and one of those being to help us absorb those fat-soluble vitamins A, D and E, which are really important development-wise for baby and health for mum. So they're important to have, but to have sparingly throughout the day. So another type of fat is saturated fat. This is seen as an unhealthier fat and mainly comes from animal products. So it's the fat that you would see around meats or skin on poultry. It would be in processed meats such as sausages and burgers. Also things like animal products, so cream, cheese, butter, right through to some of the other products we'd use in cooking, such as lard and ghee. It is also in 2 plant-based oils, so palm oil and coconut oil. These would also be saturated fat. Ideally, we want to be avoiding these where possible and actually swapping our saturated fats when we're thinking about our cooking oils and our butters over to our oils over here, such as rapeseed oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, olive oil, and then those spreads that are based on these. They would then be a healthier version. This would help us to maintain or even lower our cholesterol, which would help in turn for a healthier heart. And then over here, unfortunately, these actually often higher our cholesterol and cause us to perhaps have problems with our heart in later life. This section here, outside of the Eat Well guide, is food and drinks that are high in fat and high in sugar. Now, the fat that tends to be in those foods is the saturated fat, or even a fat called trans fat, or hydrogenated fat. This is actually a fat that's produced when making these foods, so it might be in foods such as pastries, cakes, biscuits and confectionery. Now, similar to saturated fat, these won't be good for our cholesterol levels and our heart, so we'd be wanting to have them only in small amounts and think of them as our occasional foods, our sometimes foods, rather than foods that we have on a daily basis. These foods as well can often be high in sugar. So when we're thinking about these, we really want to look at the labels where we can. Often during Foodwise in pregnancy, we talk about how to reduce fat and sugar in our diet. Now, this is really important to be planned with this one, and actually it's right through from shopping, where we can think about actually only buying what we need. So often if we do buy things that are on offer and are high in fat and high in sugar, they're very tempting in our cupboards, and often we might go to them when actually we are hungry for a healthy snack or even our next meal. It's really, really important to keep on top of this and have some goals and some targets around these foods. So if they are something that you're having on a daily basis, perhaps try and think about having them once or twice a week rather than every day. Make sure that you do have foods available to you that are healthy. That's really, really important. So having that fruit bowl stocked, having foods in the fridge and in the cupboard that you can easily go to. So if you're feeling tired or if you've got other dependents around you, then they are easy to get to. It's also really important, if you do fancy something that is like this, then perhaps have a look at what's a healthier version for it. So it's looking at those labels, but also then maybe having a go at some home cooking and perhaps putting less fat and sugar into it. With these foods, it's also really important to be mindfully eating. to really thinking about what we're eating. We often talk about how we eat snacks and things on the go, so maybe just standing in the kitchen or in the car, and those tend to be those foods that are high in fat and high in sugar. Sometimes we need to just take a moment to realise what we're eating, to sit down, to have nothing else around us, no devices, and really savour what we're having, rather than just quickly picking and eating. We also need to sometimes just distract ourselves away from food. Now this can be really, really important when managing weight, and we often need just another distraction. So maybe a walk, a read of a book, playing with our children, just to get away from the kitchen, from food, and from those temptations. Now, this can help manage weight, and as we've said, it's really important that we're not eating for two, that we're actually eating healthily for you and for baby, and getting that exercise in. Lots of women ask, but do we need more calories during pregnancy? And actually, the answer is no, not until the very last trimester, and that's the last 3 months. Now, this tends to go hand in hand with an increased appetite anyway, and we tend to eat a little bit more during those last few months while baby's growing. Now, we only need 200 calories a day more. Now, that is hardly anything in the scheme of things. Now, often women say, oh, that's great because I can have those extra biscuits, that's extra cake, but actually it's a really, really important time that we could be getting in that extra calcium or that extra fibre or extra iron. So perhaps choosing a bowl of high fibre cereal with milk, or choosing some cheese on toast, or choosing something that's going to give us those extra nutrients that we need at the end of pregnancy right through to breastfeeding would be ideal in these last few days, rather than grabbing for those high in fat and high in sugar foods. So when we're thinking about fats and sugars in our diet, the main key message is that we're trying to reduce the total amount of fat per day, but also we're trying to reduce the amount of sugar that we're having. We don't need sugar for energy, it's actually non-essential. We need to get our energy from the rest of our foods, and especially our carbohydrates, those starchy carbohydrates. So when we're thinking about this, we want to then be swapping our saturated fats that we might be using for cooking or in our day to unsaturated fats, but also looking at those snack foods that we might be having, trying to get those healthy options in our house rather than having lots of unhealthy options around. And that will really help to maintain that healthy weight gain in pregnancy rather than a quick weight gain. And when we're thinking about our health in general, these things will really help towards the health of ourselves for now and in the long term and for baby. And when we're thinking of these, it's important to look at those labels. And our next video is going to be looking at how we actually check those labels and really see how what we're eating is good for us. So till then, see you soon.